Hi, how are you? Okay, so we're gonna do lab 4 today. You can find lab 4 on your Canvas. Make sure that you download it. I just changed the file because the heading was incorrect earlier. So we are gonna do a few things. Today we're gonna look at your network interface card or your adapter settings. Many of you will be working closely with this as you need to configure your IP addresses, which we are gonna do a lab on that, on how to be able to do subnetting. And then we are gonna use Network Protocol Analyzer. In the security world, Network Sniffer is like your second best friend, because that's how you're gonna be able to find information if you do ethical hacking. That's how you're gonna be able to find attacker if you are going to protect your network. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is we are going to follow the steps. So I'm gonna do this along with you. And if you have questions, please stop me and ask. And you can do this on Windows 10 or 11. I wrote this for Windows 10 intended. Okay. All right. It sounds echoey, so give me 1 second. Let me mute this. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Oh, I think it stopped now. It's just to audio. I thought that there's no microphone on here. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at the part A. So the first step for you is it tells you to log into your PC, and we're going to use the school computer today. And you are going to right click the Windows button. This is going to give you all the menu options for Windows 10 or 11. And you are going to click Computer Management. So this is Computer Management Console. Another way that you can do this is you can search for computer management, right? In here. But the easiest is to right click Windows button and go to Computer Management Console. So for Windows 10 Pro and Enterprise version, you're going to see this folder, the local users and group. If you do this on Windows Home, Windows 10 Home, you won't see some of the Windows folder options. Okay, so it is slightly different, but you still have access to Computer Management Console. So once you're here, right, I have a screenshot. What you're going to do is you are going to go into Device Manager. So Device Manager also exists in Control Panel along with if you can just search for Device Manager, right? It is another tool that we can use. So when you're learning how to troubleshoot computer or to look at which device is installed on your computer, you would go to Device Manager. That's Windows' way of tracking which devices are connected and configured on the system. So once I click it, you might see the little prompt saying you don't have administrator privilege. That's okay. We're just going to look at the information. So anytime that you go in here, you see how I have this unknown USB device and it shows an exclamation point. That is basically not configured. So anytime you see an exclamation point or a red symbol, a red X next to it, that means that it's disabled for the red, and the exclamation point is it's just not configured. So once we are in the Device Manager, which is step 2, and I screenshot it for you, we're going to go down. We're going to scroll down to your network adapters. Okay. Sorry. So we're here. You're going to go halfway down and you're going to click the little arrow next to network adapter, and you're going to see these. So last week when we take a, or you guys didn't have last week, the week before, when we're talking about how the network adapter is configured with an IP address, right? How it obtained an IP address, or when we look at an IP address, the operating system, this is the way that it sees your network adapter, whether it's on board, right? So when you look at the second item here, it would say killer E2500 gigabit Ethernet controller. That's your Ethernet adapter, your network adapter, okay? That's the port that you use to connect the cable, okay? Now, we have a bunch of virtual machine space adapter. Those are used for your VirtualBox or your VMware player. Those are for your virtual machines. And then we do have some mini ports that's incorporated with that network adapter, okay? So expand the network adapter option. And then you are going to click the killer E2500. We're going to right click it and we're going to look at the properties. So whenever that you need to configure the adapter, we need to select the adapter and go to its property. Okay. And here, what you can see is you're going to see, right, the original general information. It also gives you the manufacturer information and the type of bus, right? For those of you who are in my CIS25 for tomorrow, we talked about bus last time. And then this is the driver. So driver is basically a software that allows the operating system, which is the software, right, to be able to see the actual hardware, right? It's a way that the operating system can utilize that hardware through the driver. So it tells me that this is the driver information. So it tells you to right click and select property. And then when you look at it, you would see the general information, right? Here, the driver date is this, the details. Let me see if there, it shows you any kind of information. So if you look at events, it's gonna, so this is the log that the system provides us. Anytime that you install hardware along with software, right, the operating system track everything. And for my forensic student on Wednesday, right, you took my forensic class, we already know that anytime that you change the state of the system, there's a log. So here, it provides you information with when that device was installed, right? So August 8th, 2023. They did a recent upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11 on this date, so that makes sense. Okay, so for this question, it asks you, when was the device installed? We can say 8, right? 8/2023. And I'll highlight it so it's easy. See? And the same time that it's configured. So when you look at the properties again, right? It tells you that the device was installed and it was configured at the same time. So whenever that you install the OS, a lot of the times it will just pull the driver for the update along with, you know, the upgrade that they have done. Now, if I install the adapter itself, right, operating system is going to try to put in the generic driver, and you can always find a manufacturer driver to be able to download and install. So it tells you the information here, and you can go to the events tab to see that. This is a slight difference between 11 and 10. 10, you can actually see it on the general detail page. But okay, so we would say it's the same time. And if you want to put the time down, you can. But we get the idea that it was on this date. Okay. And then when you click on the properties and you go to the driver tab, you would see the version of the driver. So 9.0.0.50. Bye. So in the case that if it doesn't work properly, you want to uninstall the driver and be able to update the driver to the newer version or roll it back to the prior version that was working. Okay. So network adapter, in the case that it it's malfunctioning or something happens. So whenever that you upgrade OS, you should always update your driver. If it's not, so you always go into device manager and check and make sure that your driver is working properly. Otherwise, your device will not work correctly, right? So if I'm not connecting, possibly there's only two areas, hardware or software. If we connect everything on the hardware correctly, and we check on the software configuration. So click on the driver tab and you can put down the version. So I can say that this is version 9.0.0. What was it? 5? And for software developer, they use this to be able to track the iteration of the version that they have gone through and tested, right, for the manufacturer. It should be driver install. So what date was the driver install, right? We saw that. So the driver date is actually released. They released it in 2020. But if you go to the events, let me see. It doesn't say.
January 14th.
Yeah, so we're going to use the driver date. So it's been a while, right? So whenever that people say that they have a brand new computer, a lot of the devices is a few years old. But when it makes the shelf, it's a few years old already. So we can say January 14, 2020. So that was actually a release date. I just want to make a note of that so you can see. And you can always go to the manufacturer website. So Alienware is owned by Dell, right? But all their components don't necessarily come from Dell. It actually comes from other contracted vendors. So when you look at it closer, which is what you're going to see later on, when we start looking at the MAC address, you're going to see who actually makes that network adapter. It's a Chinese company that sells to Dell, who incorporated into the brand Alienware, right? Okay, so once you're there, you're going to take a screen capture. You can use snip like this, or you can just do print screen and paste. So we can also take a look at advanced. I don't know if it's going to let you see it. Yeah, they disable that. So you're not. So you can look at resources. So since you're here, I want to kind of show you what this means. I know that many of you might know what this is already, but so we looked at, you know, if you take CIS25, you know about RAM and how it's used. So all your devices use some sort of system memory to be able to communicate with the processor. So here it tells you the address range that it uses for the communication channel. This is going to be an input-output. Think of this as a flag value. It's kind of like when you go to a DMV and they give you that number. Let's say I need to renew my driver license and I get this number, right? Like 23F. And that's the window that I need to go to, but I have to wait for my turn. So what this does is the processor, it uses the value in this range to give to that network adapter in the case that when the network adapter needs its attention, right? So if it needs attention, it's kind of like, you know, you at the auction, you raise your number, or when the processor needs the attention of the network adapter, it's like the DMV, give it the number and call that number. So this is the value that it uses, okay? Now, in the past, like legacy-wise operating system, we normally would set these values manually. And then they found out that when you have conflict, it creates problems. So now this is all handled by the OS. But whenever that you need to look at IRQs, IO range, on the lower level, this is what it uses. You can go into the resources tab, okay? So you can screenshot this if you want. The whole point in this is to kind of give you some image that you can refer to down the line. So it tells you here that, you know, you can look at, we can't see this because you don't have administrator privilege, so they disable that advanced option for you. Hello. So when you look at it, you can only see the resource tab. There's another tab here that you can't see as a regular user, okay? But you can check it out at home. When you get home on your system, if you have your laptop, you can take a look at it. It's going to be a little different that you're using your Wi-Fi instead of your Ethernet adapter. Any question? So part A was pretty easy, right? We just going to screenshot that and we paste it in there. So you know what to do. You know what it looks like. These assignments are really written for you, so you have some reference. And then we can close the console, okay? So whenever that you need to, you can also go into here to be able to manage your system. So computer management console is really designed as a one-stop shop. So we close. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at settings. So when you go for interview for jobs, sometimes they will ask you, they would say that, oh, you need to configure your IP addresses for your system. Where would you go to do that, right? So in Windows, you have many ways. You can go through control panel. You can also go through settings. So here I want you to be able to take a look at how you can go into settings. And we've seen this when we did the wireless router lab. So you're gonna go to settings, search for settings, and it will take you here. We're doing part B. And then you are going to click on network and internet tab. So I'm here. That's going to be on the left-hand side. Click network and internet. So this is all my network internet options, right? For Wi-Fi, we will go here and find the network. We did that before. Then you are going to select Wi-Fi, and then you're going to go to the hardware properties link. Okay, so you're going to go here, and you're going to go here. So this is a way that we can actually take a look at your network adapter quickly. Okay, you guys see that? So now I'm looking at my Wi-Fi adapter. So I click on network internet, right? And then I click on Wi-Fi, and then I click on hardware property. So this is where you can find your physical address, which is your media access controller address, your MAC address. This is tied to, it's a way to identify your network adapter or your wireless adapter as a physical component. Okay, and it tells me that this is Qualcomm. Qualcomm made the wireless adapter, right? And the driver version. So this is another way that we can take a look at, right, your adapter information. And as you notice, it tells you that the IP address is automatic. It's using DHCP, Dynamic Host Control Protocol. This allows the server to give it the IP address that's available on that network. Just like at home, you would get the next address that your router acts as a DHCP server to give you the IP. So you would get 192.168.0. Let's say 75, for example. Okay, and then the DNS server assignment is also automatic. So by default, these options are enabled, right? This is what we call dynamic IP, that it just obtain the next available IP, right? It's kind of like you're ordering fast food and they just give you the next available number. And when it's ready, that's the number that's used. Okay. Question. Okay, so once we're there, we're going to take a screenshot, right? We can snip or we can print screen and paste. So if you're using snip, just do snip and then new Sorry, I meant to snip this. So I can snip and then take that. And then Control V to paste or right click and click the clipboard to paste. Any question? Okay. So this is something that I use in my security class, but I want to show you how you can do this. So what you can do is you can use a Mac lookup app. So hold down Control and then you can click the link and it's going to open this up. So if you want to know a little bit more about who actually created that network adapter, we already saw that it's Qualcomm, right? Going back to my wireless here. So if I take this and I paste it into my Mac lookup, I would find out who made this. So Qualcomm actually contracted with this company, right? Cloud Network Technology Limited, and it actually pinpoint directly to where they are in the world. So each company that makes adapter, they're given a set of MAC addresses, like a range, and that's what they use. They register those MAC addresses to their company, and that's how we can identify it, right? And it tells me that this company is based out of China, right? Most technology hardware devices come out of China because it's very cheap to produce. Okay. So for part B, well, after we look up the MAC information that we got here, you can copy and paste it. And it asks you, can you locate the organization produced adapter? Yes, right? If so, who manufactured the network adapter? So when you use that lookup app, what you see here is it tells you that Cloud Network Technology Limited is the company that produced it. And they're based out of China. You can see on the map. So we can go and answer that. Sorry, I forgot to bold this. So there are other tools like Wireshark, IOU, Mac Finder tool, and there are many more. Okay. So in the chapter, I think I talk about how your MAC address, right? Half of the MAC address is really dedicated or registered to the manufacturer, and then the other half is going to be used to as unique identifier for that device. Any question? Okay, so when we come back here, let me see. If we're using this, so if you go to Ethernet and try to use the Ethernet one, right, you would also see the information. So the Ethernet information is going to be more. Okay. And then I can also check the MAC address for that. I think the Wi-Fi is pretty limited in what type of information it's giving you. Let me go back. Let me look up the killer. So on the killer Ethernet, right, adapter, you would see that it's Dell. And Dell manufactured in the US. So they register a block of address. That's how we're able to find it. So if you look at the Ethernet MAC address is actually Dell. If you look at the Wi-Fi MAC address, it's actually the company from China. right? So you see that, on the same motherboard, you see that different parts are being produced by different companies. Any question?
We did both. companies.
You can pick whichever one you want. I think when you look at on the setting, if you look at the Ethernet, you're gonna get more information, right? Kind of like what we seen earlier, the driver version, and then the DNS information. This is what's given to. So they use for my system in order to, we can use both, but this is a primary communication port. So let's do. Yeah, I don't think you guys can see the link speed now that they changed this, but let me go back and look at the Wi-Fi.
You can see it for the other stuff.
I'm sorry?
You can see it for the Ethernet.
Yeah, but for the hardware properties, yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, they don't let you see the link speed. So for this part, right, we're not going to be able to see. So you don't have to do 5. But if you try this as administrator, you might be able to have that information. Okay. So we learned the second way is through settings, right? And you simply click on network and internet. And I want you to remember these things because you might get questions, right? I have a student in here earlier. She's about to go for the interview for the apprenticeship position. So she asked me, she's like, what kind of question could they be asking me? And I said, anything you put on your resume is questionable, right? So we want to make sure that we know. When I interview technician, I love to ask them, can you show me how you can do this, right? If you said that you can, then show me how. So we have 2 ways, right? We talked about looking up information through device manager, through computer management console. You can access that through control panel as well. We talked about how to use settings and network and internet options in settings. Now we're going to look through it through PowerShell. So a way that we can access this is through command line, which is command prompt or PowerShell. Okay. So to use PowerShell, you simply call it up. And you are going to be limited if you're not an administrator. I just want to let you know, right? So we're going to try. So you're going to call PowerShell by searching PowerShell. So I just simply go to the search bar and type in PowerShell. So as you see that it's going to put my account information here as I'm logged in under my name, right? Ideally, if you are the administrator for the system, when you use PowerShell, for example, when I call it up like this, you would right click and choose run as administrator. So if it's your computer, you can do that, right? That is going to elevate your privilege to the highest so that way you can configure, edit, whatever. So as a regular user, right, the path is it's going to put all of my information into my directory here. So when you're using command line, always pay attention to where you are in the directory, in the folder, right? So I'm under the C drive, which is the root drive, the users folder, and myself, right? If you run as administrator, it's going to be a little bit different as it put into your system path as you are in the highest privilege. Okay, so you're going to see the path slightly different. All right. So what we're going to do is we are going to do a get net adapter to see if that's going to come up, and you can copy and paste. Maybe you can't. So we'll type. And it really depends on the level of access you have, right? So this is a way that we can sum up the type of network adapter that we have on our system. Just like earlier, right? When you look at your device manager, it listed a bunch of adapters. You see the virtual ones, you see the Ethernet ones, which is what you see. On this one, we have a Bluetooth and a wireless. We already know that the Qualcomm one is the wireless. So after today, you can comfortably put down on your resume that you know how to use PowerShell to find network interfaces. That's important, right? So when do we do this? We do this when we troubleshoot, okay, for a specific system. If a user said, oh, I cannot, somehow I lost connection to the network, right? I'm not able to access my web app. So you would first take a look at the configuration of your adapter to see if the system recognizes it and to see if it has an IP address. Okay. So it tells me here, what does it say? Status up, right? So that means that it's working. Okay. If you troubleshoot, and this is for students in CIS25 too, we want to check the logical status and the physical status. We have to make sure that the light is blinking, right? When we plug in the cable, and we wanted to see if the OS sees it as up, that means it's running. You see the bottom, it says disconnected. Why is that? Because I disable my Wi-Fi, right? My Wi-Fi is disabled, so it shows disconnected. So whenever it's not functional, you should see it as disconnected. Any questions? Are we clear? Okay. All right, good. PowerShell is really cool, actually. You can do a lot to it. Now, Microsoft does a really good job in documenting all the steps. So if you want to practice further, look it up, right? And then practice the command. Make sure you remember. So for those of you who learn programming already, this should be really close to home. Microsoft developers are C# developer. They train on C. So it is a function to get and set. Whenever that you are obtaining information, when you're viewing information, it's a get. Whenever that you edit the information, it's a set. So just remember those two and you're pretty set. A lot of the functions, so all that is when you execute that command on the low level, it execute a function to give you kind of like cout for those of you who learn C++ or print in Python, right? Right. So basically it's get adapter, so it's just give you a list of all the interface that it recognizes, right? So it's a function call here. All right, so take a screen capture for submission. So snip this one and then paste it. And then what adapter has the highest throughput? So when you look at the link speed, remember we couldn't see that earlier because we don't have access to the advanced tab as we are not administrator, but guess what? We can here, right? As a regular user. So if there's a way, you can always find information one way or another. So if you know many ways, right, you can always obtain. So which one's the highest? Right? A lot of my student thinks wireless is the fastest. It's definitely not. Which one's the highest? Why Ethernet? This is giga, right? Okay. You guys, I always tell my students, think about lottery, mega million, but giga is 1,000 more. So you want to win giga million, okay? So yeah, gigabyte is the best one, right? So your killer, your physical Ethernet adapter has the highest. But also your virtual machine is using that, right? It piggybacks on top of that. That's why it's the same speed. So if I'm using VirtualBox, for those of you who are in my security class, you're familiar with VirtualBox. We use VirtualBox all the time. And you guys will too, right? It uses the physical adapter, so that's why it's the same. Mega is less, right? So when you're looking at Bluetooth, it's definitely a fraction of that. And then definitely for your wireless, even though it shows connected, disconnected, but your you know, your wireless can go a little bit faster. It's really depending on, so here they're using Wi-Fi 5. Now a lot of companies, a lot of the newer board use Wi-Fi 6, which is quicker, but you know, slightly, right? So now that you can see the link speed, so you know how fast it is. So answer question 8. And then we're going to try ipconfig /all. I don't know if this is gonna let you though, but we'll see. So we're gonna do ipconfig /all, and this is the same command that we can use in command prompt. And we are gonna do a pipe, which is a shift, and above the enter key, that's a pipe. So whenever that you pipe in command prompt or in Linux command line, all that is a separator to combine two commands, right? Instead of typing it 2 times, 2 separate line, right? I can do the first command, press enter, the second command. We can bind them together using a pipe. So you can combine 2 commands using a pipe. So we're gonna do a find str. And we are going to type, it is sensitive in the string. So description physical, right? And then press enter. So if you're getting an error, it's a typo that's called syntax error, type again. Okay. We have to get used to learning command line. Yes.
The line.
So you're going to do a shift and it's above the enter key. And yeah, the key above
I see it.
enter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a space in the line?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to do a space pipe, right? So ipconfig /all, and then space pipe find str description physical. And for the description physical, it has to be as type because that's a string, and basically you're doing a find store. That means that you're searching for that string, for that text, right, in the IP configuration of the system. So it tells you what, right? Here's the description of the VirtualBox adapter, the physical address, the Ethernet adapter, the physical address. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for the physical description of the adapter. So if you want to list all the description of the adapter and its physical address, right? Its MAC address, that's how you do it. Okay, one shot. I love command line that you can get all of that data in one line versus 5 clicks later and you're still trying to find it, right? Okay, so we are gonna look for your wireless adapter. Okay, that's a Qualcomm one. You can also use the killer E2500. That's your Ethernet one. So whatever that you wish. This one is the Ethernet, and then if you scroll down to the Qualcomm, that one is the wireless. And then this one is a little harder, right? You have to type, this is one line. I thought that it did let me copy. Let me try it again. Before. No.
You have to screenshot the whole thing.
Yeah,
Snip
you,
it.
yeah, you can just snip it.
It won't fit, so should we just do the bottom where it's description?
I'm sorry?
Should I open up the whole box? Do you want the whole thing, or you just want where it says description?
Just put the description physical address. Yeah. Okay, so let's try WMIC, NIC, oops. Where physical adapter, one word. equal true get MAC address, comma name. So you're gonna type as is in one line, just like what I did there, right? So WMIC space NIC where space physical adapter, no space equal true, get space MAC with a capital address, comma, no space there name. So what we did here was we filter out the description part and we just only pull the MAC address, right? So it gives you all the MAC address on the list of all your interfaces. And that's PowerShell. Well, a super light version anyways. So we will use more. So if you're getting a bunch of red letters, red outline, that means we have error, and then go back and check the typo. So we can screenshot. And so when you compare this to the prior step, right, you look at the screenshot, you can see that how is it different between your, if we're looking at get net adapter, it gives you all the adapter information, the link speed. Then we went to step 9 when we look at just the physical. So we look at the description. So we list the description of the adapter and its physical address. So that's different. And then on the step 10, we only list, right? We list the MAC address. So this gives you the MAC address first, and then the name of the interfaces. Ultimately it's still the same information. It's just how you want to display it is how you ask it to display, right? So if I wanted to show the MAC address first, I would use the step 10. If I want to list the description of the adapter and then the MAC address on, subsequently on the list, then I would use step 9. And if I want to list everything, then I would list step 8, right? Get adapter gives you all the interfaces information, including link speed. Whereas step 9 only gives you the device description and its physical address. Same thing with 10, but 10 lists out the MAC address first. That's what we ask it to do, right? Get MAC address and then name. Okay, so the parameter that you plug into for that function is this, right? For those of you who know programming, when we do the function call, it plugs in the parameter name and then the MAC address. Pretty cool. I like PowerShell a lot. So this is a highly demanded skill for Windows administrators and also security people. So PowerShell can, you can use it for a lot of things, from automation to configuration to, lots of things in security and IT. So when we're done, you can close PowerShell. And then the last thing, so we learned now 3 ways, right? I'm going to show you the 4th way to get your network status information. And then we'll move on to Wireshark. Oh, not even an hour yet, so we should be done shortly. Okay, anything before we close PowerShell? Okay, so make sure we take a screenshot and answer the questions as you go. And save your work. Some of you answer questions and then not save work. So save work, and then that way you can upload it when you're done. All right. So next, we are going to do the last part after PowerShell for part B. We're going to use control panel. So traditionally, control panel was the thing, and then Microsoft implemented settings because it looks nicer and cleaner. But settings still use control panel options. Now, here at MVC, they use the small icon in their image. But likely when you use it at home, you're gonna see category like this, okay? So it might look like this, it might look like this, it might look like this, okay? So when you call up control panel, I like the category option, but the admin here, they like the small icon. It just gives you more options to choose from, and that's just a lot for me, right? So I want you to, I wrote this with the category option, so change it to category, and then you're gonna go to network and internet. It's very close to settings as categories, okay? So change the view to category and then click network and internet. So this is going to give you all the information about your network and internet, kind of like the settings that we looked at earlier. And right underneath the network sharing center, you should see the link that's going to take you to the applet, view network status and task, which is step 14. You're going to click the blue link right here. Okay. And next to connection, you should see the Ethernet adapter information. Mine says Ethernet 7, right? You should see your Ethernet adapter there. If you're using Wi-Fi on your laptop, you should see that there as well. So you can click that. And what you're gonna see is you are going to get some information. So earlier we saw that, you know, the link speed information from PowerShell, it pulls it from here. You see that 1 gigabit per second? And I know that it's working because it's actually, they're sending and receiving, right? I'm currently on Canvas, so I have, and also on Zoom, so I have data that goes back and forth. And then if you click details, which is the next step, step 16, you should see the IP address, version 4, right? If they have version 6, you should see there's my MAC address. I should blur this out on the YouTube video that's gonna go up. I always worry about that. But all right, here's the router. So whenever that you, so I'm gonna show you this, and I know some of you know this. So if I use command prompt, which is similar to PowerShell, but it's not. This is another way that I didn't include, but we're gonna learn this later on. Okay, so if I do an IP config /all, I would get the same information here as in here, right? Okay, so I want you to screenshot. So once you get to that step, you would screenshot this. This gives you IP address, MAC address. We talked about subnet mask. That's like your zip code, right? For the system. This is the default gateway, just like how it listed here. The default gateway is their router, right? And then the DHCP, the server that gives out the IP addresses for RCCD is this address and this address. And so on. Okay.
So screenshot the network connection detail.
Yeah. So equivalent to that, you can pull it up on command line this way, command prompt. Yeah. See? So that's like the 5th way. So there are many ways that you can find IP addresses or network adapter information in your PowerShell, in control panel, in settings, in command prompt. Okay. So take a screenshot. The reason why I want you to do that is looking back at the lab, maybe a few months from now, you remember what it looks like when you do that step. Okay. Save your work. Okay, any questions as far as the end of part B? I'm pretty sure that you can probably find like lots and lots of video on Wireshark. Wireshark is a very common tool in the industry. It's used for network monitoring, but ultimately it is a network sniffer. It's a protocol analyzer. And in the past, I guess I didn't focus too much on Wireshark until student hit CIS27, but I think this class will probably be good to kind of get your feet wet with protocol analyzer. So this is used by administrator. It also can be used by attacker. It can also be used by security professional for a lot of different things. Ultimately, you want to kind of sniff out or survey, right? Basically, Wireshark allows you to use the protocol analysis part of the application to look at which packets are being sent across your network. What kind of communication is happening in your network. So you're going to search for Wireshark on the, and if you don't have this application, you can install it on your computer, right? I know that it works cross-platform now, so you can open up the app and it looks like a blue fin like this, and this is going to come up. Okay, they promised me that there's no more yellow errors, so it should be good. All of them should be working now. So earlier we saw all the adapter. I know that it throws in additional adapter.
Software update, so a new version of it.
Yeah, just close that.
Oh.
You don't need to do updates.
Oh.
If you see the update prompt, just close the update and keep the interface like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose the Ethernet option, which is going to be for mine, it's going to be Ethernet 7. If you're using your laptop, sometimes you can only have Wi-Fi, like my laptop only has Wi-Fi, so I have to choose Wi-Fi. So your interface that you use to connect to the network. Now, when you capture, it's going to be everybody, okay? It's going to be a lot. So it's kind of like putting a camera, right, on the street, and all of these cars are going by. But the cool thing about it is we can actually inspect what's in each car. So an attacker, they can capture your network traffic on the wireless, and they can take a look at the packets, right? And where it's coming from, where it's going to. It's kind of like they would go and take a look at your postal delivery, right? They monitor it and eventually see what kind of package you should be receiving. So we can take a look at what's going on in our network and also examine other network that way. Right? So once you select your adapter, okay, it should give you the wiggly line, and you're going to go ahead and click start. The blue fin on the left-hand side is the start button. Okay. So select your Ethernet adapter and then click the blue fin. But at this time, what I want you to do is I want you to generate a traffic. We're going to do a purposeful traffic. That means that I'm going to create some form of traffic. It's kind of like, you know, I know that people are looking for a certain type of car. I'm going to send that vehicle down. So I want you to open up your browser. I'm going to use Chrome, or you can just click this control and click to open it. Now, we don't see a lot of HTTP traffic anymore because they passed a regulation that almost all website has to be HTTPS. So what we're going to do is we're going to purposely generate an HTTP traffic. And you can just keep refreshing it to make sure that that traffic goes. So HTTP traffic, whenever that you visit an HTTP website or HTTPS website, 4 things that's going to happen. It's going to go out and it's going to get. So it's going to reach out to that server. So your system is going to send requests to this server. It's going to say, give me the page. And the server needs to confirm. So it's going to say, what did you need? And then your system is going to send back and said, I'm confirming that I need this page. And then the server is going to give you the page. This is what you see, and this happens in milliseconds or less, right? depending on how fast your network and your processor is. Okay, so once we generate this, we should see some form of traffic on our Wireshark. Okay, so that's what's happening here. I have you open up Chrome and visit. So while we wait a little bit before we pause this, let's go through this so that way you know. So when you look at your packets today, it's color coded. In general, it's going to fit these description. If it's light purple, it's TCP. TCP, remember what we talked about, the delivery guide that needs your signature? That's TCP. It needs validation that that's the system that's supposed to receive. UDP, it's the delivery person that just throw it at your driveway and take off. Don't care if it gets there, it's stolen, whatever, right? That's UDP, user datagram protocol. Black packets are packets with errors, potential problems. So network administrator needs to take care of this. We need to look at this. Light green, your HTTP traffic. Light yellow, that's Windows specific traffic. And your SMB. Sometime video conference like Zoom will show up like this. And NetBIOS, that means that communication system with names on the older legacy PC or Windows system would use NetBIOS. Whenever that you deal with routing, a lot of the routers is going to use dark yellow and then dark gray. And there are other colors. So Wireshark actually has books and training and certification. So if you want, you can take a look at also. So I added some information here for you to look at when you do that. All right, I think that's good. We're going to go ahead and click pause. So stop. Okay, so when we take a look at the Wireshark, I'm going to pull it here and I'm going to give you the description here. You see the NO on the left? That's your number order of the packet that got captured. So that just indicated, you know, kind of like in the room who speaks first, right? So if we put a camera in the room and for every person that speaks, they have to speak by order. So that number is just the order that the system speaks. Then the next part is the time. This is basically the timestamp of when communication is generated. It shows you how long, right? When you get captured and how this can be changed in the settings. So it just the amount of time for the conversation. The source is the address on who sent. Okay. So when you look at source, who sent, and then destination, who receives. Okay. And then the protocol that's used, these are different type of protocol for communication. And whenever that you see protocol, it always ties to a service. So we can kind of pinpoint what that system is trying to use by looking at the protocol through its service, right? And then the length, so shows you the length of the packets in bytes. Some packets are larger than other. Some are smaller. So it gives you all the information here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the middle pane, which is this part, to look at the packet information, right? We're just like you put the camera and looking at all the cars that pass by, but now you're going to look inside each car. Who's in the car? Where are they wearing? You know, so we're going to look at the packets information and the bytes. Okay, so what I want you to do is once you have your packets information, let's go back to the top. We're going to use the first packet. Okay. And then we're going to view it. So this is, remember the type up here, right? Light blue is your UDP and it falls right to what? So for mine, it shows UDP. Yours might be slightly different. It depends on when we capture in time. That's fine, right? Yeah, so you might be connecting through a switch and then it's going to connect through your router. So yeah, so if it's a little different, that's okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a look at the packet. Now, when you examine the packet, you can also examine the middle pane here, right? It's going to give you the frame information sometimes, or Ethernet or internet. So in the case that if it's using IP, like in my case, it does, right? For routing, it's going to tell you. So for me, it tells me that I know that this is a Cisco device because of its ID, you see? And then the source is the Dell. So it's a communication between a Dell system and a Cisco system. So you can expand and take a look at the packet. And then your data is just the body. Now, it also shows the port, which port it's coming from and which port it's going to when it's received. So we can answer the question once you examine your first packet. Now, as you notice on mine, there was a lot of UDP. Sometimes you would see a broadcast like this for ARP. So broadcast, we talked about like broadcast radio. It sends to all the devices, but it doesn't listen back. Okay. So put down the type of packet that you receive. Then what we're going to do is we are going to sort it now. So if you click protocol tab, it's going to organize everything by the protocol. And we can also filter. Let me see if I can filter. You can also search for HTTP or filter HTTP and then click the arrow. That's faster. Otherwise, if you capture for a larger network like ours, it's going to take a long time. So if you sort by protocol and then you type in HTTP and click filter, you will get the light green, like what we talked about. And you can give me approximate. So I did it for a while, so it's going to be a lot. You can count it too. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12. So I have 12. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to click on one. And what you should do is you should take a look at this. So I'm going to choose this one. So whenever that you visit a site that it's able to communicate okay, you're going to have for those of you who took web programming, you know this, right? It generates a code called 200. 200 means that it's able to serve it. So it's okay. 400 means, you guys ever get the error 404, right? The 400 is the error code. The 500 is the redirection code. So on the server programming end, we use these code to kind of verify the state of our server on whether it's serving or not. So if I click the packet, let's say this one, right? What it is this website is responding back to this system that requests. The source IP address is this. So the server, this is the server, the HTTP server sending back to one of our system, 10.151.101. You can choose any of these. You can also find your IP. Okay, so look at the source IP and the destination IP for that one packet, that line. And if it's hypertext, you would see this option and you can expand on it. So I know that this runs Apache. So when I expand on this server runs Apache. It's a Linux server, right? It was last updated in 2014. This is really good information for if I do ethical hacking, because likely that it might be, so we look for outdated information to find vulnerability. And then the port, you can see the transmission control protocol, that's your TCP. Click expand in this option. After you select here, you're going to expand TCP and you should see port 80. Port 80 is used for HTTP for sure. And it needs acknowledgement number, sequence number, the header. Think of this like the label that goes on your package that you receive, right? To be able to track. So if you have many packages, right? Like let's say that I ordered something that's large and they send it in 3 boxes, it would use the sequence number to track how many boxes supposed to arrive in total. And then when you go down, you should see payload size. This is important on the security end for attack, because a lot of the times they would use payload information. So whenever that you see, when you see like, things that would take down web server that would overwhelm it, the payload size is very large. Okay, so we would look at the payload size. And you can go down to TCP payload. So if you expand TCP, transmission control protocol, you would see the information payloads right there. So a way that you can cripple a system is to continuously requesting it, right? Like pinging, or to be able to keep asking it to respond. You can also use Wireshark to sniff out traffic for encryption purposes. So there are times that we would do that.
I have a question. Is there another link to copy this through Wireshark or?
I don't, oh.
There's a lot of limitations.
Yeah, I think you can use edit to copy something. You can try that. Yeah. But Wireshark has the capability for you to export the data. We don't normally write things down. We would have it in XML or CSV file for analysis purposes. Okay, so look at the information. Then what you're going to do is you are going to take a look at the timestamp for HTTP. So timestamp shows that it's this time. And it's GMT. So it's slightly different than our time zone. It really depends on, so the server I'm looking at is, it's located in a different time zone. If it's request, it would shows you the request time to live. And if it's response, it should show you the response. So like I said earlier, right? Like there are 4 ways. So it's first it needs to get, whenever that you fill out form for HTTP, it would be set. So that's the command they use in the back. Very similar to what we talked about earlier with PowerShell. Okay, so as you go through here, you would look at the connection. What type of connection is shown? So whether it's open or closed, it would show you right there. So once it's 200, it's going to close the connection, right? Because it's already confirmed. And then you can go down to user agent. If there's user agent. So if it doesn't have user agent, so what could be some user agent? User agent would be like your browser is a user agent. It's a way for the system to be able to use an application to communicate. On the server side, if you look at mine, it uses Apache. But that's just a server, right? So let me take a look at some of the other ones. So if you take a look at another packets that belongs to the system, it would list like the user agent is your browser, Mozilla, Firefox, etc. Oh, I'm sorry.
User agent Microsoft Office.
Yeah. So it would be whatever the application that's used to be able to connect or establish that connection.
So mine is weird. So mine is like in the frame right here, the device, and then it shows.
Yeah.
Because mine right here has HR. I think it's being turned because mine didn't have a time. Yours don't either, huh? See, mine goes here, which is supposed to be in the hypertext transfer protocol, and it's a header, which is. Connection, which is keep alive, and then mine right here says Microsoft Word user 2013. Sorry, my kind of I ended up saying her. No, it's fine. So on my timestamp, I put what was heard, which was 154. Please her. Yeah, she's going down. So you can't see the bug. It's the work. I just went out there on mine and didn't show that either. So I'm gonna double check with her. And then right here, I didn't, does the classroom contain HTTP request or HTTP respond? I don't know that one either. What type of connection is telling about the attack? I have to keep alive. Right here. Keep alive, and then it's slash.
So the initial get my because if it's trying to
R, and then space slash. Okay. And then where it says, what is your user agent information in the packet? Like right here is the Microsoft user agent, Microsoft Word 2014, same thing slash. You see yours? Okay, so you're gonna look at Yeah, yours is gonna do this, a whole Zillow flash, you're just gonna put that whole thing, you know. I remember her other classes too, so sometimes she kind of goes off to her friends, and she does the same thing, so that's why I can keep up a little bit, because I do her class Monday and Tuesday, so it's like back to back, you know. And then we weren't here last Monday, so we did some of this last Tuesday. Oh my God. To make that. Girl, I mean, sorry. My sister too much. She's literally zero. I was like, I can see you. It was under hypertension.
So we have the hour.
And does the packet contain HTTP request or HTTP response?
It's a request, because it says request back and forth.
Okay.
Oh, it's not.
Right. I think my laptop too, but because I was trying to use it.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, I have all of that. I was doing your laptop.
Compare that to the other, and because, click on the other one.
I just wait like a second. It's like, oh,
When you look at TV, you only look at the.
I usually just get it across my friends, but it's just easier when I save it on here and I just get it right on.
Make it close.
Okay. So that way.
Sometimes it just, like, point something seconds after the last thing, so that it's hard to miss the actual.
Yeah, it's just the one like that.
Yes, part of the chat. So, you forget when it's.
Back here.
So basically, it's.
It was the last time I was school. Going 14 and they're all sequenced.
wanna have like a little background?
I
Start my. I'll try for videos. There's so many photos and black and white. But then I'm taking my.
Yeah, the date and the time is the timestamp. Sometimes it's under timestamp, sometimes it shows you the date and the time. Yeah.
So I was looking,
Questions are not.
extra response. But it's, I was wondering, yeah, it's a struggle. That's pretty good.
Yeah. If it shows, if it's response, it will say response.
But I'm doing it.
Usually if the response is fulfilled, it's gonna close the session. It's gonna say close connection. Yeah, so if some of you have question about requests, right? On mine, you should see right here, it says HTTP request 1-1/1. And then it would say that the response time is gonna be in this frame. So we should have an expectation of the response in this frame, right? And then the connection. Now, the communication, when we look at it, if you're looking at this, sometimes you would see the actual time and date. Sometimes you would see that it fulfills it several point something seconds after the previous. So that means that it sequentially follow the other packets. It's just, you know, with the leading packets it's gonna be like however many seconds after that. So you might not be able to pinpoint the actual time that was sent. It's just sent after the previous sequence. Okay. So I just want you to get used to reading some of this information and how to find it. And then after you had found this, right, you are going to click on the packet and then you're going to go to analyze. So this is 16. And then you are going to use follow option here. And if it's HTTP, you are going to have HTTP stream, right? So we are going to choose HTTP stream. And what that does is it's going to include all of the conversation between the systems. So it tells you that here, this one request, this one respond okay, and it actually gives you the timestamp, right? And then this is the content of the web page that was serving for that request. So it shows that here. So you can follow the stream to kind of see what kind of conversation between the system, the source, and the destination. And I simply did step 16. If you look at if you follow the step, you click on the packet and then you click analyze. And then you click follow, and then you choose the type of stream that you want, which is HTTP. For in this case, because we're using HTTP, you can also choose TCP stream to kind of see the conversation in TCP. So when I look at the stream, right? What it asks me is, it says how many packets would contain. So coming back here, right? When you filter out, when you analyze the stream, you're gonna see SYN and ACK. ACK stands for acknowledgement, SYN stands for synchronized. So when the communication between the client and the server, it's gonna have to be either SYN or ACK, right? So when it requests, it's gonna try to ask the server for certain things, and when the server is ready, it's gonna synchronize. It's gonna acknowledge and synchronize. So this is what you see. Okay. So how many packets contain SYN? How many packets contain ACK? How many packets contain both? Sometimes you would see FIN-ACK, that stands for final acknowledgement, right? So if you don't have both, you might have FIN-ACK. FIN-ACK, that's the end.
Oh, fin, so you'll put fin, how many for fin?
Yeah, FIN-ACK instead of SYN-ACK. So 2, right? I have one that just SYN-ACK, and I have 2 that's FIN-ACK, and then I have acknowledgement and SYN. So you have some different ones in the
What
mix
about
here
RST?
for RST.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you can put that
Okay, for, considered as, both
for acknowledgement.
acknowledged.
Okay. Then we can clear out the filter and then we can search for UDP. So we want to look at the UDP multicast stream. So once you put down your acknowledgement and sync, we can click the red X to clear out our filter again. And then you're going to click statistic. And then you're going to choose UDP multicast stream, which is like close to more than halfway down. And this is going to give you the overview of all the UDP activity. Keep in mind that UDP is often used for things that don't need confirmation, things that require fast, like streaming media, like video streaming, radio, online radio, stuff like that. So what you're going to see is you are going to see a lot, right? And it asks you, it says, how many UDP multicast stream was, so if it gives you the summary, you might get something right here. So I have 165 streams. So look at the italicized small font at the bottom after you select UDP multicast stream. So I'm going to look at the font here and it will tell me how many of those streams were captured. And it gives you additional statistic, right? Like birth size, buffer. We care about buffer if you care about availability, because sometimes that just basically take up your storage as well. But in general, statistic information, it will give you that. Okay, so see this part here or here. Then what we're going to do next is we are going to take a look at the endpoints. So we are going to close this, come back to Wireshark, and then click on statistic. And from here, you're going to select endpoints, which is like near the top, 4th one down or 5th one down. So endpoints are systems that are connecting on the network. A client, your computer could be an endpoint, a tablet could be an endpoint, a phone could be an endpoint, a smartphone would be another endpoint. So this is a good way to see how many of the systems are connected via in different area. So here it gives you, and you can select other options here if you want to display. So it gives you the count, right? And the size of the communication in bytes. So if we look at this, I have 52 that's connecting via Ethernet. That's probably my basic desktop or, my business systems, right? And then I have 78 that uses IPv4, 18 that uses IPv6, An endpoint could be like switch devices, you know, security appliance, etc. TCP/70A and UDP 204. And you can also select options here on the left. Then on the TCP tab, we're going to select this. I have 78 listed. And so I can say that there were 78 packets that were transmitted. Click on the port tab. Sorry, let me come back to here. Yeah, they don't. Hold on a second. It's not letting you guys see the port tab on this version. Yeah, so I think when you click TCP, the port tab is right here. So if you click on the port, it sorts it. Not up here, okay? The port tab, like it's like the column port. Click on the column port and you would see. So in my case, I only have 2 for port 80. Now, when you use HTTPS, you would see 443. Sometimes 444, but normally 443. Okay, so the majority of your web traffic is going to be 443. So when you click TCP for step 22, after that, for the next step 23, you click the port column. It's going to sort it. And it's going to list 80 at the top because that's the lowest value.
So how many TCP packets were transmitted from the 80?
Yeah, mine, it says on the actual tab itself, it's 78.
Oh, my.
Yeah,
92.
yeah. So if yours says 92, it's 92. And then out of all those, these are the ports that are used.
Oh.
So the TCP packets, it should say on the tab itself, the count.
And then do we screenshot this?
Yeah, so it says to select IO graph. Let me see. Yeah, they disable some of this function here. So you don't see that. Because I have the latest version when I wrote this. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, you might be able to do the IO graph. So go back to statistic and then go to IO graph for 25. And it's going to give you this. So if you need to do analysis, right, you can look at the trend. So for step 25, we just click on statistic and IO graph and screenshot that. So we screenshot this. And then we're going to go back to statistic and click on the conversation. Let me go back here. So statistic conversations for step 27. Then we're going to choose UDP. So port A is your source and B is your destination. And it categorizes it. So it tells you that after you click on UDP under conversation, you're going to click port B to sort the port list. So we're going to click port B. And what are some of the ports? So I mainly have 53, which is DNS. And you can list out some of the ports that are listed. So 53, 138, 161, 547, and 1900 for me. And then we would, yeah. So if you only have 53, that's a DNS. So whenever your system is connected to a domain like rccd.edu, right? That's 53 is at work. Your DNS is at work. Or we use it to be able to provide a way that a system can connect to our domain through the name and IP address. That's 53.
And then it says, is port 53 being used by the UPB traffic?
Yes. So yes, obvious. And then we're going to use the version 4. So click on version 4. Conversation. I have 89. Yours might be different. Yeah. What's the count for IP protocol types? Sorry, let's see. Yeah, it's here. IP protocol types. This gives you the percentage clear. So I have IP protocol types. The count is 23409. Yours might be a little different. And then TCP and UDP, and the percentage are listed there. So the majority of your traffic, as you can see, is mostly UDP because that's fast and convenient. It doesn't take up a lot of resources either because TCP needs confirmation. And that's why it's slower and it's resource heavy. Okay. And then after we look at the TCP and the UDP percentage, you can come back to the statistic menu and then you're going to do DNS. So Wireshark is beautiful in that it gives you all the analysis already in the box, right? What we can do is, as an analyst, if you are a network analyst, you have to take this data and do something about it, right? We have to prepare, plan, you know, if things go down, things not responding, how can we streamline and have more efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So we want to take a look at how our system are responding and communicating in the area of different type of services and different protocol. So one of the areas we mentioned earlier that was primarily port 53 that uses UDP also is DNS. So we can take a look at the total packets count. For mine is 60. And then for the DNS queries, so how many times was it asked and how many times was it responded? Okay, any question? Let me end the session on Zoom.